Hey friend, in today's watercolor tutorial, I'm going to be showing step by step how to paint Rocky Mountain National Park from Colorado. Without further ado, let's get painting. I'm going to be using black, Payne's gray, Antwerp blue, Perylene green, VanDyke brown, sap green, and permanent rose. The paper I've taped down here is a size 5 by 7 inches. I'll also be using a little bit of white gouache. And the brushes I'll be using today are size 2, size 16, and size 6 round brush by Princeton brand. To get started, I'm just going to use my size 6 brush with a little bit of watered down Payne's gray to do a subtle sketch line of our mountains here. And I'm going to start by doing a slightly angled line that's kind of barely just pointed towards the right corner of the page. It's just a very subtle angle. Then it's going to kind of swoop downward with a very subtle C curve. And then it's going to swoop upward towards the right. And then there's going to be a little bit of a dash line here. Another gradual kind of dash line pointing upward again, a slight horizontal dash line. We're going to bring it back down once more, and then do another swooping kind of C curve, and then just bring it up a little bit. Okay. Then from here, I want to do just a faint sketch line, kind of mimicking our tree line, just really watery. Just a really faint, subtle sketch here. And then from here, I want to kind of sketch our water line, which is going to be slightly curved, just about starting a couple inches from the left corner. And then it's going to slope slightly downward. Just like so. And the first part I want to start with is our sky. So I'm going to switch gears to our size 16 brush. And I just want to do a really simple wash to start. So we're just taking some water just to deeply saturate this top half to get some wet and wet, simple watery elements of our sky using our Antwerp Blue, a little bit of Payne's gray, and our permanent rose. Okay, so to start, I want to do some Antwerp Blue, switching gears to our size 6 brush. And I'm simply just going to apply a few random areas or patches of this watery Antwerp Blue. I want some white to be visible. Then from here, I want to take just the most watered down, simple, subtle amount of permanent rose, which is a very vibrant color. But I just want a little bit of a touch of it just to kind of hint at a sunset. It's very, very subtle. Okay, then from here, I want to take some very watered down Payne's gray, and I just want to add a few touches of Payne's gray That's just going to add a little bit more depth and contrast to our sky. I may layer just a couple more pops of Antwerp Blue just to get a little bit more of a brighter blue incorporated in here. All right, just gonna smooth out a little bit of this transition here into the pink just by taking a watered down size 6 brush and just kind of blending that color just a little bit. To give a little bit of some irregular cloud-like formations here, I just want to buff out some of this angled line just a little bit, just to kind of smooth it out. Maybe I'll incorporate just a touch more Payne's gray in here, just to give it a little bit more irregular shape. And then just utilizing a slightly damp brush just to help smooth out transitions and water lines. And as needed, I'm just going to add a pop of a little bit more blue. Okay, before I overwork the sky too much, I'm just going to let it set and dry. I'm happy with some of these pastel tones. And next up, I just want to add a wash of water into our lake below. And to start with the color here, I'm going to switch gears to our size 6 brush after we lay down that wash. And I want to start with some streaks of our Antwerp Blue. And I'm just doing a left to right motion with my brush, starting from the top. And I'm going to add some towards this right corner, maybe just a little bit more of a concentration towards the top as well. Just allowing the colors to be loose and to bleed out a little bit. And I'm just dragging and buffing out some of this blue. And then from here, I just want to add a faint hint of the Antwerp Blue in the center. Next, I'm going to take some Perylene Green, which is going to be kind of our reflection of some of the deep, vibrant green pine trees we'll have above our water here. So I'm just kind of adding some not Antwerp green, some of this Perylene Green just to give a nice shadow in the water below. And I'll add a touch of it towards the right as well. And I'm gonna start to incorporate some really loose horizontal lines just to mimic some ripples in the water. Okay, from here, I want to add just a touch of our Sap Green, just to give a little bit more pop of green. Not too much, just a few little pops of this color, just to kind of brighten up the reflection a little bit. And then I'm going to take just a little bit of permanent rose and incorporate it in the center. If it pops too vibrantly like it just did now, it's okay. Just take a damp brush and just slightly buff it out with the belly of the brush here, this side angle. And then you can kind of gradually soften that hue just a little bit. There we go. Okay, from here, I want to take my size 2 brush this time, and I want to incorporate just a bit of Payne's Gray to add a little bit more depth. And I'm just going to use Payne's Gray to start to incorporate some more of these ripple horizontal lines. So just taking my brush and doing some subtle left to right motions just to get this kind of a little bit more structured in detail. And I'm using really light pressure with my size 2 brush. Okay, now I'm just going to incorporate some more Payne's Gray towards the border of the water just to give a little bit more shadow. And then I'm just going to slightly buff that out just a little bit. And then incorporate just a few more finishing horizontal lines in our water. Alrighty, next up we can start to add a little bit of a gray wash to our rocks, but I want to mix a little bit of Payne's Gray with just a touch of black to get that color. So now that our sky is dry, I'm just gonna incorporate this soft blend with plenty of water. So I'm gonna go over the sketch line of our tree just a hair bit, so that way we have some bits of the rock poking through the trees in view. And I'm simply just gonna fill this area in with the wash first before we add any more rock texture detail. I want to take a little bit of paper towel and some whitewash to add a little cloud in our sky. Kind of want a little bit more highlight action going on, so I'm just going to take some whitewash and I'm simply going to use the paper towel to kind of gently buff out a little bit of a cloud. Just kind of adding pressure with the paper towel to add a little bit more variation of the white highlights in the sky. Now I'm just mixing a little bit of Payne's gray with some black, and using my size 2 brush, I just want to add some more detail to our mountains. So I'm simply going to softly start with this outline, just doing some really loose vertical lines here. From here, I want to do kind of a swooping line towards the left, kind of a crevice in the rock here. And again, this is going to be very loose, so don't overthink it too much. I think rocks, I know for me at least, were very challenging when I first started watercolor, to the point where I avoided painting mountainscapes for quite some time, but now they're actually one of my favorites, so you never know. Now I'm just going to do a few more vertical lines in a row here. And then I'm just going to do a slight horizontal crevice just across and a second one just below. Then from here, I want to add some more rock texture towards the top. All right, and then from here, I just want to do a few kind of loose dry brush texture using the belly of my size 2 brush, just to incorporate a little bit of loose texture down below in this kind of swooping slope area before we curve upward towards the right side of the mountain. Once we get to the right side of the mountain, I want to start to just give a little bit of a more rough texture to the mountain towards the right side. And then I'm just taking my brush and just tapping, getting some irregular shadows using our blend of Payne's gray and black. Then from here, I just want to outline this kind of rough edge. And then I'm just going to buff it out and add a little bit of texture using the belly of my brush. We're keeping it very simple and loose. Then from here, I want to do just a few curved lines sloping towards the right. And then I'm just buffing it out using that similar dry brush texture, just like so. And from here, I kind of want to define a few kind of crevice areas. So I'm adding a second layer, just sloping downward. Just a few kind of lines that pop in the crevice of the rocks. Here, I want to do just a couple crooked angled vertical lines kind of feigning downward. I'm going to add a touch more shadow on this right side of this little kind of mound here. Again, just very loose. And then here towards the top, I kind of want to redefine some of the shadow here in a couple areas. So I'm just kind of relayering and texturizing. I'm just adding a touch more shadows just to get our rocks to pop. Okay, now we can start to paint our pine trees. So to begin, I would like to do a little bit of a green wash base of Sap Green just to start. And I'm just going to take my size 6 brush and just do a wash of Sap Green in kind of the formation of this curve that we did alongside the water and the loose sketch line that we laid out against the rock. I'm now going to mix up some Perylene Green with some Sap Green, and using really light pressure with my size 6 brush here, I just want to incorporate some really loose vertical lines, just like so. And I'm just starting to build some loose tree texture with some of the trees pointing up above our water line of the watered down green. I'm gonna go ahead and do that now on the left side. From here, I want to take just some straight Perylene Green and just add a very loose, rough texture against the water line and the pine trees, just to add some more depth and shadow. And if you don't have Perylene Green, you can definitely mix some brown with some Payne's gray or blue, like Prussian blue or Antwerp blue, with plenty of green and a touch of black, and you would kind of get a color very similar to Perylene Green. Okay, now from here, I just want to use the tip of my size 6 brush to add a couple streaks of VanDyke Brown. I do want some brown to pop here to mimic some tree trunks kind of popping through. Some that are thicker and some that are thinner than others. And then from here, I'm simply going to take our green blend and start to incorporate some kind of more pine tree details. So I'm just using the tip of my size 6 brush here to just get some really loose pine tree-like structures. Just taking my brush and adding dashes alongside the vertical lines. And if you want a more in-depth tutorial on pine trees, I do cover this more in my North Cascades forest tutorial. So if you type in North Cascades tutorial or look under my watercolor landscape beginner tutorials, it's underneath that playlist as well. So I'm just, again, adding a few dashes on either side of our tree trunks, using really light pressure. And if needed, you can definitely use your size 2 brush if you would like, just to have a little bit more control, or if your hand is more heavy in the brush strokes, it's helpful to go down a size if needed. I just want to add a little bit more touch of VanDyke Brown, so that way it doesn't get too lost as it's dried. So I'm just adding a few touches more just to mimic some tree trunks. Not going overboard, but just subtle. All right, next I'm going to take some plain Perylene Green, and I just want to do a few dashes of very dainty vertical lines, and these are going to mimic some pine trees kind of off in the distance. And so I just want to incorporate just a few areas where I have just a few of these vertical lines kind of in a sloping form. I'm just adding a touch of these, very loose and dainty, so not detailed in the slightest. Add some up here as well. And some off towards the upper right area. All right, and next, I'm gonna take a little bit of Payne's Gray, and I just want to add a little bit more depth towards the bottom base here, using my size 2 brush taking some more Payne's Gray just to add some elements of some more shadows. So I'm just tapping kind of at the surface of the water at that border and a little bit in between some of the trees, just adding a little bit more depth so that way the shadows of some of the tree areas are not all just flat in like the same green tone. Just to add a little bit of variegation. All right, carrying on with our Payne's Gray and our size 2 brush, I want to relayer just some more Payne's Gray, especially coming off of the border of the water, just to kind of blend some of the shadows up just a little bit. So that way it's not a really harsh contrast of the shadow from the trees into the pale, more pastel toned water. We kind of want some gradual depth being incorporated into the water so that way our highlight colors really do pop. So I'm just taking my brush and doing some really loose horizontal motion with our Payne's Gray. And then from here, I'm just going to take water to softly kind of buff out these harsher lines. And it's just going to create even more texture by applying the water alongside these harsher lines and then just buffing them out to just kind of smooth out some of the contrast. From here, I'm just going to take some white gouache and apply it again in a horizontal format using my size 2 brush. And I just want to add a pop of some highlights in our water, which I'll buff out with some more water on my brush. But for now, I'm just kind of laying out the foundation of where I want to apply some of these highlights. Last but not least, I just want to add a few rocks. And so in order to do that, I'm actually going to layer up on some of our whitewash. I'm just going to do a few simple kind of loose mounds just at the surface of this water. And then I may just do one off towards the left here that's in the water itself. Then from here, I just want to take some VanDyke Brown, carrying on with my size 2 brush, just to add some more earthy color to the rocks. Now I'm just going to add a touch more of whitewash on the right side of the rocks and buff it out with a little bit of water as kind of our highlight from the sun. I hope that you enjoyed this watercolor tutorial of Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any further watercolor tutorials.